It is race 2 of the weekend here at a very wet Snetterton for the Intelligent Money British GT Championship, and the cars making their way round onto the grid ready for our second 60-minute race of the day. This the first weekend that we've had, if you like, the traditional format of sprint races, because we've done 2 hours and 3 hour events, but now the first of these two 1 hour blasts at Snetterton. Well, it was a very lively first race earlier on, and now we look forward to seeing what happens in race 2 on a circuit that is very wet to begin with, but there is a break in the cloud. It might well be drying up later, and it gives the teams a real quandary as to what to do in terms of tyres, and indeed gives race control a bit of a quandary whether to do a normal start or a safety car start, but all that will be revealed in due course. David Addison and Andy McEwen trackside, Bryn Lucas down on the grid, and as the cars make their way round to the grid, that is a pleasant sight because it missed race 1, the Team Parker Racing Porsche. It had a throttle sensor drama. The team couldn't trace, couldn't work out a way around it, and so the car had to sit out race 1. Scott Mulvin will start race 2, and it's very good news indeed that that car is making its way round to the grid. Reshelled after a sizable accident at Spa a couple of weeks ago. The grid is based on the qualifying time set by the start drivers for this race in Q2. It means Dennis Lind is going to start on pole position with Jelmer Berman lining up at the front of the grid. And for the pros to go in the wet and the AMs to go on a drying circuit in the second stint is going to make it very lively indeed. Scott Mulvin, British Formula 4 champion, making his way round to the grid and exploring just how treacherous a track surface it is right now. There in the background is the car that was second in the earlier race. We had the all-dry race earlier on in the day, won by Charlie Eastwood and Ahmad Al-Hathi, but there, second, Kelvin Fletcher and Martin Plowman with the Bentley, and that car therefore cops a success penalty. Now, normally, if you finish first, it's 10, second is 7, and third is 5 seconds in both GT3 and GT4. The winning car is not a full season entrant, so therefore not only does that have to carry 10 seconds in this race, but so does the first car that was registered for the full season and for points, and that is there, the Bentley. So even though they were second, they get 10 seconds, and 7 will be carried by the third place car and 5 by the fourth, if you're following all of this. It means that Dennis Lind's car will carry 7 extra seconds in the pits and 5 extra for Johnny Adam and Andrew Howard's Aston Martin. There is Sandy Mitchell's Lamborghini that had a massive problem in the first race with the left rear brakes. The disc had effectively come apart, and so Sandy Mitchell was having hellish problems. The fact that he got the car to the end of the race at all was a major achievement, and the car lining up then ready for this second race. Sandy was able at least to sort of look ahead and be positive about race 2, but the rear near side disc sheared completely off, and really impressive, as I say, that Sandy Mitchell got to the end with massive brake dramas for pretty much the last 20 minutes of the race, so the majority of his stint. There is a car that was excluded from race 1. Marcus Clatton's car was guilty of a pit lane infringement and got a drive-through penalty, which was ignored, and so for that a black flag came, and the race director elected to exclude him for not obeying the instructions of an official. Up to the grid comes Jelmer Berman, second on the grid, the Dutch driver, and now the debate goes on as to whether to start on wets, or by the time we get going, is it going to be good enough for slicks? I think wets has got to be the way to go, hasn't it? Because the road is still very, very wet indeed. However, if anybody can cope with the conditions, it will be the pro in a Pro-Am car, and it's the pros that will start this race. The fans have had some good racing here today, and there are plenty of them as well, which is good to see. They're a bit bedraggled right now, but this next hour of GT action should be well worth enjoying, as there Martin Plowman lines up for this race 8th on the grid in the Paddock Motorsport car, the team that he and Kelvin Fletcher have established together. For TF Sport, 97 Charlie Eastwood arrives a row ahead in the Oman Racing with TF Sport entry. And oh dear, oh dear, oh dear, somebody's shedding bodywork already. Now, what has that come off? That's the rear of something. I think that might be a Ginetta from the previous race, because it's got a rival tyre brand to Pirelli that supplies the rubber for British GT. So thankfully it's not somebody having an off on their way to the grid, it's somebody getting a bit carried away in the previous support race. Now there is Jelmer Berman second on the grid, and let's hear the thoughts of Johnny Adam. He's going to start third on the grid in the Beach Dean AMR Aston Martin. Johnny Adam ready to talk to Bryn Lucas.
Well, Johnny, it's great to see you back in the British GT. It's a shame we missed you at Spa. And the conditions today, well, they're not dissimilar to qualifying in Spa, actually. You've got your work cut out.
Yeah, it's very obviously different today. Obviously, with the weather changing, we've had showers all day, on and off. But looks like that heavy shower is meaning we're all starting on the same tyre, on the wet tyre. But we've had about 3 or 4 different forecasts for what the race is going to do. So it will be really interesting on who can sort of stretch out maybe the wet tyre. If you do get slick later on, it'll be interesting who can get on that as quickly as possible. But you know, we've still got one mind on the championship. Obviously, we want to finish well. We've got 5-second pit stop time added on for this one. But yeah, the goal definitely is to push ahead at the start and see if we could obviously try and get to the front.
You can't win the Drivers' Championship now because unfortunately you missed Spa, but your teammate can. Now, I know you've been in this position before, so how does this play out in your mind?
It plays out just the same for me. The goal is all about the customer, you know. It's all about Andrew and trying to get him to try and achieve another championship. You know, it was a very similar situation for me in 2013 with Andrew, and it's the same here. You know, I've got one goal, and that's to try and get him to become a champion at the end of the year. So we'll work hard behind the scenes and try and make that happen.
I know you've got your little girl here, so hopefully she'll see you win as well.
Yeah, it's good to have the family here, so looking forward to the race.
Great stuff.
Thank you.
So Johnny Adam ready to go. Got his racing specs on as well to peer through the gloom. Right, a word about track conditions. Andy McEwen has been out there braving the elements. It's got a bit wet, hasn't it?
Yeah, not a hugely shocking piece of news, but they're all on wet tyres, everyone that I saw. It is a lot wetter, actually, than even that camera makes it look. Lots of puddles, lots of standing water, so, yeah, unanimous decision and quite an easy one, I'd imagine, if a little bit last minute. You know, tyres are one thing, but how much have they been able to change on the cars setup-wise between races? Because really that rain only came heavily about, 20 minutes ago, and it takes a bit longer than that probably to put a full wet setup on the cars. So I'd imagine most of them are out there with sort of hybrid setups almost, and they'll have changed the most important things, but who's got it right? That's the question. I guess we'll find out.
Yeah, I mean, is it going to be fully dry within the hour? Discuss, because it's wet. It'll go through that greasy phase, might get wetter, might get drier. Looking down onto the grid, if you're wondering why there is a gap next to the McLaren, that's not a car missing, that's where Gt3 ends and Gt4 starts. The Bentley having its control box adjusted, ready for the start of the race. So the team trying to get the optimum setup on the Paddock Motorsport Bentley, which normally one says isn't that good a car in the wet. It seems to, you know, if you remember Donington last year when Team Parker Racing won, that was a real roll of the dice on tyres. But we shall see how, for the first stint, Martin Plowman goes. GT4 is going to be ultra competitive as well. The Speedworks run Toyota Supra had a very good first race, got third in GT4, and Scott McKenna will start in that car. He's on the grid, so too is Bryn.
Scott, it all came good in that last race for you, and you were talking to me before the race saying you were really struggling with setup.
Yeah, we eventually found that sweet spot I was telling you about. We made a couple of fairly substantial changes in warm-up, and it very quickly came to us. So it was one of those situations where we sort of were in the dark a little bit, and the changes we made paid off. So that put me in a position to fight very strongly up through the field in race one. What was the problem you were having with the car? We're having a little bit of rear-end traction issues. With this being a front-engine car, the rear end is always chasing on grip, really, and with this circuit being quite hard on rear tyres with so many slow-speed corners and exits, rear-end traction is absolutely vital. So I wouldn't say we got lucky. The engineer did his job properly, and the team, we put our heads together, and it all worked out very nicely. Yeah, rear-end traction particularly important when it's wet weather. So good luck. Yeah, even more so now. So we were okay in the wet on was it yesterday or Friday? One of the days we were quite good in the wet. So fingers crossed it'll stay that way. We'll find out very shortly. Should be interesting. Yeah, good luck, Scott. Cheers. Thank you.
Scott McKenna sharing with John Ferguson in the ever-improving Toyota Supra. And there is the Bentley, which has had its adjustments done. And like I say, it really will be interesting to see how that car fares on a fully wet road then. Pit lane is closed. That's the pole position car. Dennis Lind is going to start it. Yelmer Berman will line up alongside. Johnny Adam and Sandy Mitchell, with his brakes intact this time, will be on the second row of the grid. Marcus Classen and Charlie Eastwood, the race one winner, on the third row. Phil Keane and Martin Plowman on the fourth. Scott Mulvin and Greg Caton on the fifth. And Lewis Proctor on the sixth row of the grid, which is also the GT3 element. Now, the Bentley is being pushed to and fro. Now, is that because there's a problem? Is that because it won't fire up? Either way, The car has got a Bentley technician looking in, the Paddock Motorsport squad there. There's the Championships director, Benjamin Franasovici, with his back to you in the blue cap, and Benjamin looking at this to make sure that the regulations are being adhered to. But it's a gearbox control unit issue, I'm led to believe. So that car stays on the grid. Fingers crossed it's going to be all right, but whether it bails at the end of the formation lap to the pit lane, well, we'll have to find out. But let us hope that all is well, because they had a really good run earlier on in the day in that car.
Yeah, and about time as well. They were robbed really of a good result, possibly a podium at Silverstone, before an engine issue took them out about midway through. And this is a circuit that I don't think they expected really the Continental to be especially well suited to, but good qualifying session from Kelvin Fletcher yesterday in particular put them at the front, and they were able to stay there in a podium place in race number 1. GT4 is going to be interesting as well, isn't it, with that Ginetta on pole. In my mind, I keep thinking that the Ginetta has won a race this year. Of course, it never did get to the checkered flag, did it, in first place at Brands Hatch. So they'll be determined to try and make the most of this opportunity on the front row. So this is what I like, and I said this earlier on, because we have these two completely separate qualifying sessions for both of the races, you get a very different look to the grid depending on which driver it was that qualified the car. The AMs qualified for race 1, the pros for this one. So different cars now at the front. The Ram Racing Mercedes, we didn't see much of that in race 1, and it's up there on the front row. So in both classes, we should be in for another really good race.
And you get 2 races within the one anyway, don't you? You get the pro race and the AM race, certainly in GT3. So there the grid now being cleared. It is going to be the conventional start behind the safety car. Thankfully, rather than a safety car start, it will be a rolling start. As in, they do the formation lap and then race. They don't, as far as we are being told, set off on the clock start. So the 30-second board shown, and the lights flash atop the safety car then, which is ready to go. And assuming that there hasn't been a last-minute change of plan, it will be the conventional start process. So the officials look on, the green flag is there, and the car on pole position, the Lamborghini of Dennis Lind, it was a mighty charge that he put in. He said rather nonchalantly after the first race, yeah, I enjoyed that, you know, as you do, carving his way through the field. But championship leaders Dennis Lind and Leo Machitsky, the green flag now is waved, and the cars accelerate off onto the final formation lap, and the Bentley does not want to play, does it? The Bentley stranded then, so the cars dodge around. This is how wet the road is, but the Bentley is, as far as I can see, not, you know, it is moving now. It has fallen to the back of the GT3 ranks, just ahead of Greg Caton in the Porsche there. So Dennis Lind and Jelmer Bertman will share row 1. The second row of the grid is Johnny Adam and Sandy Mitchell, a very Scottish second row of the grid, with Marcus Clatton and Charlie Eastwood on row 3. The fourth row is Phil Keane and Martin Plowman. Scott Morvan and Greg Caton share row 5. And then the sixth row of the grid rounds out the GT3 element, and that's where Lewis Proctor starts the Balfe McLaren. Then the seventh row and back is all about GT4, Charlie Robertson and Darren Turner. Then Jordan Collard and Gus Burton. The third GT4 row is Michael Benyaya and Scott McKenna in the Toyota alongside. Matt Cowley comes next with Jake Giddings in the Sicily Mercedes alongside. Harry Hayek is on the penultimate row alongside Ashley Marshall. And then Jamie Stanley and Andrew Gordon Colebrook to round out the grid. That number 9 BMW having had a wheel bearing problem and a pretty sizable oil leak in the first race. Now, I've talked about the top 3 getting pit stop times and discussed that in the context of GT3. GT4, Andy, not only do we have 10 seconds for number 2 McLaren, 7 for 57 BMW and 5 for the Toyota, but if you're a silver partnership, there's an extra 14 seconds to factor in as well, including number 2 McLaren. So 24 seconds for that, 21 in total for BMW number 57. What we have on the grid could be a very different order from the result in GT4.
Having said that, though, in the previous race, the top 2 GT4 finishers were Silver Cup entrants, so they overcame that 14 seconds, even though the second stint of the race was less than half an hour in length. So they can do it, but can they, particularly in the shape of the 2 and 57 cars that finished first and second in GT4 last time, they will also have their success penalties added on. That might just be a little bit too much to ask of them, and so the likes of Assetto Motorsport and Newbridge Motorsport, who make up the GT4 front row, success penalty free, and they're both Pro-Am cars, so none of that 14-second extra in the pit lane. So I know it's easy to say because they're on the front row, but they have to start as the favourites.
Indeed so. Well, so does Dennis Lind, along, assuming they can paddle their way around the first few corners. Now, we should be fine, shouldn't we? It's the pros doing the first stint, it says here. What could go wrong? But if anybody can cope with the conditions, like I said a few minutes ago, it will be the pro drivers. Dennis Lind versus Jelmer Berman, Johnny Adam versus Sandy Mitchell. I mean, it's going to be a really, really good fight, this, over the first few laps of the race, because, as ever, the Intelligent Money British GT Championship lacks for nothing in terms of the quality of driver, does it? You've got some real stars up there.
Yeah, absolutely. And year after year, these professional, often works drivers come and race in the championship, and they really do elevate the profile of what is already a hugely exciting series.
So we're set to go racing then. It is a 60-minute sprint. The pace car, as it is, peels into the pit lane. The cars get themselves in the requisite side-by-side formation ready for the start. The race director will give the command. And who is it going to be that makes the best start then? It's Dennis Lind on pole position. It's Jelmer Berman in the Mercedes alongside. We go racing. A better start by Sandy Mitchell than Johnny Adam there from the second row of the grid. And they lean on each other for the race lead. Dennis Lind on the inside line. Jelmer Berman on the outside finds more grip and goes through, goes wide, but comes out ahead. And that was a really brave and a really good move by Jelmer Berman. Look back from Dennis Lind. This is what powerboating looks like. And Dennis Lind losing out to Berman, who goes deep into the Wilson hairpin. And a really good start has been made, look, by Charlie Eastwood, because he's jumped ahead of Johnny Adams' Aston Martin. So Charlie Eastwood up from 6th on the grid. Ooh. And there's drama there. And I'm afraid that's Scott McKenna and Charlie Robertson and also Jake Giddings in the Mercedes all getting involved.
Yeah, it looked like McKenna went very wide. Oh, and that's off is Martin Plowman then in the Bentley. I was about to say he'd had a really good start, gaining a couple of places before turn one, but off he goes through Palmer's. Yeah, Scott McKenna went very, very wide at the Wilson hairpin, and as he tried to come off the corner, there was just a big squeeze. They were already 2 or 3 wide up the inside of him. That gives Darren Turner then, I think, the GT4 lead.
Jake Giddings, I think, has parked the Mercedes in the background, and there is Martin Plowman struggling on in the Bentley. Now, whether that was an off or he had a bit of help, we'll wait and see. As in the meantime, there, Scott Morvan in the Porsche is on a charge and going strongly. He's about to try to make a move up against Phil Keane, and there's drama there. We've lost a McLaren, haven't we?
Yeah, I think that's Enduro, isn't it? Yes, it is. It's Marcus Clutton that's had a spin, and there's an Aston Martin off, which looks like Darren Turner. Yes, it is. Darren Turner off from the lead of GT4 as well. I know you said that the pros are in the car and they should be able to handle the conditions, but that shows how slippery it is.
It does indeed, and how everybody is pushing, and how cold the tyres still are, and how wet it is out there. So if you lose a place on the opening lap, better than losing the lot, isn't it? Now, look, Dennis Lind has got himself back up the order, but Jelmer Berman, that was a mega move, wasn't it, to lead the race. This is the view then on board from Sandy Mitchell's car, currently running in 4th place as they come round. Coram, drivers discovering just how much or little grip there is, and it may well be that we get yellow flags back up the Wilson hairpin after that GT4 skirmish. Martin Plowman has survived it, more or less, but life is pretty horrible out there because the road is wet, the spray is there, there's condensation inside the car, and Jelmer Berman, in a car that's not won this year yet, leads the way. Second over the line as we see the demise, sadly, of the Assetto Ginetta. Charlie Robertson walks away from a damaged car. It is Berman from Lind, Eastwood from Mitchell, Adam from Keane, and then 7th is Scott Malvern, 8th is Greg Caton, and 9th at the end of the opening lap should be, hopefully, Lewis Proctor. 10th is the leading GT4 car, Jordan Collard, ahead of Gus Burton, and then Matt Cowley in the Mustang there.
Yeah, list of cars you wouldn't expect to go well in the wet. Ford Mustang quite near the top of it, I'd say. Bentley Continental another, and it was going well for a couple of corners. That is the 25 Mercedes of Jake Giddings, who has pulled off, as you said, coming out of Palmer's. There is an entrance into the paddock, but it's locked, and he can't get in.
Right, so he'll just have to sit there for a while. I think I saw the Toyota coming into the pit lane, did I not? Yes, yep. There it is. So I'm afraid after its really good first race, it is in dramas, and Darren Turner you'd identified in drama as well, and he too comes into the pit lane. So interesting to see whether those cars can go back out because of their problems early in the race. Meantime, Jelmer Berman at the end of the opening lap led by 2.5 seconds. Just mighty.
I remember a number of years ago sitting down at Knickerbrook watching a very wet British GT race trackside and watching Jelmer Berman charging in the wet. He goes well in these conditions in that Mercedes. Darren Turner going nowhere with a left front puncture. Now, cause or effect, he was off at Oggie's, but he was in the middle of that skirmish with Scott McKenna. I wonder if that's contact with the Toyota that's knocked the tyre off the rim.
Very possibly so, yeah. So the web-footed Berman leads the way. Dennis Lind is second. There is Charlie Eastwood, winner earlier on in the day, third. Adam Vallant's, Sandy Mitchell's green Lamborghini is fourth, ahead of Johnny Adam, then Phil Keane, then Scott Malvern. So the Porsche, having missed race one, seemingly okay at the moment. This reshelled car. Now, just to add to the woes of the drivers, not only is the road still soaking wet, but it's brightening up. The sun is trying to break through, and if the wind is still there, it'll dry the circuit relatively quickly. I don't think it's going to be an issue for tyres before the pit stops, but it's going to make tyre choice at the pit window very interesting indeed.
Well, that's the thing. I don't think it will dry before that pit stop, like you say, but it could dry 15 minutes later. And then do you go on to wets or slicks at the stops? You have to go really for the conditions of that moment, but they can change so quickly because of this wind that we've got blowing across the track. I think the track will dry pretty rapidly. So Berman then 3.6 seconds clear. He's a second a lap faster than anybody else, and that anybody else is being led by Dennis Lind, of all people, in second place. Charlie Eastwood third. Remember, they have a 10-second success penalty to serve. Sandy Mitchell fourth, and Johnny Adam in fifth position. There goes Johnny. He locks the brakes though, I think, going into Wilson. He takes a wide line anyway, but the car was a bit sideways as he went into the turn, and that maybe gives Phil Keane a little bit of an opportunity to move into challenge.
It does indeed. So we have lost from the race then Charlie Robertson and Jake Giddings. There's a big gouge of bodywork in the sides of the Toyota, and whether that car's going to rejoin, we're trying to trace, get to the bottom of, but it might be that the damage is too great as Johnny Adam comes under attack here from Phil Keane. Here you've got the winningest driver in terms of races chasing the winningest driver in terms of titles. Phil Keane on the back of Johnny Adam, and behind them Scott Malvern in the Porsche, new for this year in the championship, and we've got a yellow flag being waved and a safety car being deployed. Safety car has been called for, safety car on track, and so Jelmer Berman's 3.6 second advantage, forget that, that's going to come right down, and this surely is to do a bit of clear-up work. But who have we lost that's trackside? It must be the Janessa, mustn't it, that's parked presumably in an awkward place.
I thought, I may have dreamt this, but I thought I saw it behind a barrier, so I don't know whether we've lost somebody else or, I mean, there were a number in strife, weren't there? Scott McKenna is in the pit lane, as we know, so it's not him.
No.
Let's see, everyone completed the first sector on this particular lap. We'll figure it out in a moment. Once they're all bunched up, we'll count cars and see who is still there. Not good news this for Jelmer Berman. Obviously, he had this nice little lead, didn't he, over Dennis Lind, although we know that the 63 Lamborghini will have that 7 seconds extra in the pit lane, so actually not good news for Dennis either.
No, indeed so. If anybody can try and stretch that again, it'll be Dennis. Now, that's the reason for your safety car. Somebody's been off and done quite a bit of damage to the rector cell, but that's a long way off the circuit and two random places to have hit.
Palmer's, isn't it? Turn 3.
Yeah. Now, the Bentley was off there, but I don't think it hit anything.
No.
The Mercedes was off there as well, but not quick enough to do anything like that, surely. I can't believe they've just fallen over.
It is windy here today.
Well,
but,
it is, but they're heavy old things, those.
Yes, yeah. I wonder if it's a car that was involved in that Wilson contact that's then continued and had broken steering or something and didn't realise.
Might have been the Sicily Mercedes, which is the only thing I can think of that was off there in the background. I wouldn't have thought it had gone quick enough to do that, but we'll see what we can find from onboards and other shots to try and piece it all together. But anyway, while it's not a car being removed, it's the circuit being made safe, if you like, with the barriers being put back to where they ought to be. So the cars continue. All of this counts, remember, within the hour, and the safety car stays out for the moment. The gaps count down. We've done 3 laps, and the race order is Jelmer Berman leading from Dennis Lind. Charlie Eastwood is third. Sandy Mitchell fourth ahead of Johnny Adam and Phil Keane. Scott Malvern is seventh from Greg Caton. And then for GT3's final position at the moment in terms of the leading gaggle, it's Lewis Proctor. You've got Martin Plowman a bit further back, and then also Marcus Clatten, both of whom are recovering after earlier dramas. But for 10th, it's the leading GT4 car, Jordan Collard. McLaren ahead of BMW, Gus Burton, ahead of Mustang, Matt Cowley. Then the 2 GT3 cars, as you see Charlie Robertson's car being retrieved, and that it's not in a necessarily dangerous place, but it's just where you don't want it to be should anybody else have a moment. So let's get rid of that. Then you've also got Michael Benyaya next, ahead of Andrew Gordon-Colebrook, Jamie Stanley, Harry Hayek, Ashley Marshall, and then the recovering car of Darren Turner to round out the order. This is how the start of the race looked, and although Dennis Lind made a good getaway, Jelmer Berman was absolutely uncompromising and got the advantage on the outside, the grippier line, admittedly. But Dennis Lind did his best to stave him off, but they rubbed mirrors, didn't they, on the way down towards turn 1. But in the end, Dennis Lind had to accept the inevitable. Jelmer Berman was coming past.
Yes, he was, and Jelmer showed some real faith in Dennis as well, because to go around the outside there, you're 100% reliant on the car on the inside not getting it wrong and sliding into you. We've seen that happen already today in some of the support categories. So Dennis knew he was beat in the end, knew he was on the slipperier road, side of the road, and let it go. Now, watching GT4, this is where, there goes Scott McKenna. Look, he's in the lead, but he's way, way wide. And as he comes back on, they're 4 wide, makes contact with Giddings, who makes contact with Robertson. Turner was not involved in that, so I correct myself. Turner did not have contact at the hairpin, so where his puncture came from, I know not.
This is looking back then from the number 1 Lamborghini of Sandy Mitchell, with all the spray being generated there as they head down through Riches, the Aston Martin side by side. But again, the grippier outside line, look, paying dividends for Charlie Eastwood, able to gain the place. But look at the water that's being just thrown out of the back. It's like having a power shower on, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, visibility is virtually nothing if you're in the spray. And we saw actually Martin Plowman and Marcus Clutton, having dropped into the GT4 field, just haven't been able to make their way back through because they can't see where they're going, and to pass the GT4 cars they have to go off the ideal racing line. This meanwhile Jake Giddings' view. Now this is about to get very busy, isn't it?
It is. Now there was contact, wasn't that the Toyota against Darren Turner? So that might be where the tyre started to go down. And Jake Giddings had nowhere to go. I mean, he was the absolute middle of the sandwich. He got Ginetted on one side, Toyota'd on the other, and the net result was that cars speared left and right. But here, he discovered that it doesn't want to turn, and this is what happened to the barriers, because absolutely, yes, he does go bouncing in, and words are heard. So Jake Giddings off the road, and he did get as far as the barriers. So that explains what happened to the furniture. And there is the Scott Malvern Porsche, and behind it we had that spin for Marcus Clutton in the McLaren. So that was dramas at the start, and there are dramas continuing now, because as you saw Charlie Robertson walking away, in has come the Porsche just a moment ago. So the throttle sensor problems for Team Parker Racing are persisting. And as the Sicily Mercedes is pushed away, into its garage goes the Porsche. When it's not your day, it's not your day.
When it's not your year, really, for Team Parker Racing. I mean, they've been on the verge of greatness a few times. That front row at Donington Park, or second row at Donington Park, and that race didn't really go well. The shutters are down. That's never a good sign. I think that is probably the last we will see of the Team Parker Racing Porsche. And a real shame. It's a team that know what they're doing. They know what they're doing with Porsches as well. You know, they know how to set up and run a Porsche. They've done so many times for many years in the past, in one-make competition in particular with Porsches. But they just haven't had the look, have they? That accident last time for Scott Malvern, at a track that they were really expecting to go well at. Same here at Snetterton.
The feeling, I think, about this throttle sensor drama and trying to trace it is that it's a legacy of the Spa accident. So it's been reshelled, but there are still original components in there. So the safety car is going to be in this lap. You see the lights are out. You can see them weaving around. The pit stop has not helped in any sense Darren Turner, because he lost a lap. But also, it's not really helped Dennis Lind, that pit stop, because he's now stuck behind a lapped car. He'll clear him readily, but it takes the Aston Martin completely out of the GT4 fight, because it's lost a lap to the opposition.
And of course, Dennis cannot overtake him until the start-finish line. So Jelmer Berman, if he's clever here, will back the field up and accelerate early, halfway around Cora maybe. As long as he doesn't catch the safety car before it pits, then that is perfectly fine, leaving Dennis Lind stuck at GT4 pace through the final couple of corners, and that's exactly what he's done, look.
But Darren Turner is wise enough to know exactly what he should be doing, so he'll do his best to go after a GT3 car, but he can't necessarily stay with him because it's a slower type of car. So Jelmer Berman then does sprint away, and Dennis Lind has to wait and wait and wait and wait and wait, and the gap extends hugely as over the line goes Jelmer Berman. And there'll be some Danish naughty words inside the Lamborghini, where the Dennis Lind now blasts ahead of the GT4 Aston. And what's the margin? 3.6 seconds. Eastwood clears Darren Turner, so also there does Sandy Mitchell. And Dennis Lind goes wide. Lind loses it briefly down at turn 1. He's lost second place. He's going to lose third as well. So in his zealotry to clear the traffic, Dennis Lind dropped back into 4th position there.
Doesn't strike me as a particularly hot-headed character, but I think maybe a bit of frustration there leading to that little mistake at Rich's corner. The time that he lost to Jelmer Berman, he was 3.6 seconds behind Jelmer at the restart. That is astonishing. 3 palms he goes, though. At least he's still in the race. There goes Greg Caton, meanwhile, dicing away with Lewis Proctor. That is for 7th place within the GT3 ranks. out of palm as they go. They both negotiate the Aston Martin, while Sandy Mitchell tries to do the same for position, that is, though, for third place against, for second place now against Charlie Eastwood. I don't think he quite made that one stick, but the Lamborghinis looking pretty strong here, aren't they? They're ganging up here on Eastwood. Absolutely right. The Sicily Mercedes out with a broken tracking rod. That's all to do with the damage from the Supra rather more than from the Ginetta being hit on one side rather more than the other. Supra a heavier car than the Ginetta, you could argue, as there you've got 57 of Gus Burton under attack from Matt Cowley. The Mustang was off the road, wasn't it, in the earlier race, but it's going strongly right now, as there through on the inside also to put a lap on the Aston Martin goes the McLaren. Jordan Collard at the wheel of it, but it's so demoralising now for the Aston Martin team in GT4, knowing they're a lap down and no chance of getting that back. All they can do is try and salvage points now. Yes, if they can, they're not even going to get back on the lead lap, look, because they've been lapped now by the leading GT4 car, so they are officially a lap down. All Darren can do is try and get back on the lead lap and hope for another slightly more fortunately timed safety car. This is Jordan Collard, almost getting into the back there of the Gt3 Bentley of Martin Plowman. He's getting held up, I think, here by Clutton and Plowman. We said the Bentley struggles in these wet conditions. You can really see it here, just scrabbling for grip. It doesn't want to go through the corners. It doesn't want to stop. Doesn't want to accelerate out of the tight corners. Give it a dry circuit and that car can be quick anywhere, but as soon as the heavens open, they have always struggled. Yeah, that win at Donington last year was on a wet and drying track, wasn't it? Clever tyre choice. But, yeah, we know that Bentley's struggling in the wet, and right now it's almost holding up GT4 traffic as the leader is nearly 5 seconds to the good. So it's Yelmer Berman in the lead now from Charlie Eastwood there. And they look like they're going deep into the corner. Well, they are, but it's for a purpose, because they're looking for the grippier line on the outside. Eastwood is second, Mitchell is third, then it's Lynn, Adam and Keane, and you're looking at the pair of them. Johnny Adam ahead of Phil Keane. Aston Martin, strange to think Johnny Adam has yet to win this year, given his great track record in the championship, but there he is out of turn 3, still being pursued by Phil Keane in the red Lamborghini, and Greg Caton is next in the surviving Porsche. Yeah, still ahead of Lewis Proctor, but they're both being caught by Marcus Clutton, who, of course, was turned around by Greg Caton on the opening laps. That could be an interesting battle when they get themselves back together. There goes first the McLaren, the second one is Clutton, then Plowman. Then in GT4, Jordan Collard leads. The next car is that Aston Martin of Darren Turner, one lap down. So actually, there, going up the inside of him, is the second place GT4 car, the 57 of Gus Burton. Then it's side by side for third, as up the inside of Will McCowley, goes Michael Ben-Yaya. Can he get third place into Hamilton? This is not a place you want to go side by side, really. And the Mustang stands its ground on the outside. Darren Turner also very much standing his ground here. Well, yeah, because Darren's able to do their pace, really, and he doesn't want to completely ruin his own race by getting out of the way, but he does have to play the game, as it were. And so through goes BMW, through now goes Mustang. And out of all of that, you can see that the number 57 Gus Burton BMW has been able to extend the margin a little bit over the growling Mustang, which in turn is coming under attack now from Michael Ben-Yaya in the McLaren, and off the road at the S's have gone the two McLarens. So that is Lewis Proctor, and behind him is Marcus Clutton. They've got their own line through there. It's a bit slower, but they have continued in the race, basically having run out of traction and braking ability at the end of the Bentley Straight. You can guarantee there that Marcus Clutton was gauging his braking on what Lewis Proctor was doing. Proctor outbraked himself, so did Clutton, and so they go through the McLaren S's down at that end of the circuit and rejoin as if nothing ever happened. But it's so common that happens, especially in the slippery conditions. Clutton, though, I think is faster than Lewis here, so he should be able to get through. And Marcus, who I spoke to between races, apparently the penalty they got was for being pushed out into the fast lane after the pit stop and then not going anywhere quickly enough. You have a set amount of time in which you must then accelerate into the fast lane. They didn't do it quickly enough. They tried to argue it, and they lost. You have 4 seconds of grace, and theirs was 7. The pit stop regulation is 70 seconds for a GT3 car, and their pit stop was 70.3, and it was therefore deemed to have been, if you like, tactical, to get the car in the fast lane, leave it there, let the clock tick. And that was not acceptable to the officials. So that's why they got the drive-through. The black flag was for not obeying the instructions of an official. Whereas had they taken the penalty, they'd have stayed in the results and might even have got a place back by the very end. And Marcus Clutton, as the team manager, ends up with 4 points on his licence.
he was the driver of the car, but he was also the team manager making the call from behind the wheel. So it was a pretty disappointing situation all round, really. As there, Charlie Eastwood, for my money, is being given a tough time now by Sandy Mitchell. That Lamborghini just looking a fraction faster. It was quicker last time, and it's quicker in the first sector. So Sandy Mitchell now is starting to get up his loins for second place. Yelmer Berman getting away, and Sandy Mitchell now giving a tough time to Charlie Eastwood for that second place.
And they're both getting away from Lind, aren't they? So Dennis maybe not quite happy with the setup, and this is something that I don't know if Brink can get down there and chat to some of the teams about this, but I do suspect that none of these cars are ideally set up for the wet conditions, because, as I said, they haven't had a huge amount of time to predict the rain and then react to it. So perhaps Dennis's car not quite to his liking, but this could all change in the second stint when we have the driver change.
But what setup do you go for? Do you go for a fully wet that might be irrelevant at the end? Do you go dry as Eastwood goes wide and he's about to try to hang on to second place? He will hang on to second place just about. Do you go for a dry setup, which is going to be good at the end probably, but bad at the start? Do you go for an intermediate that might just about work all the way through? What do you go for? So that's the big dilemma for the teams. But now it does look as though they're increasingly hunting for the wetter parts of the road in certain places just to prolong the life of the wet tyres.
Charlie Eastwood could not have been closer to the edge of the circuit there on the outside of Rich's, but he just kept it in. Now to the inside goes Mitchell. That's the shorter way around the corner, but look at the exit speed from the Aston Martin. Far superior traction on that outside line.
Again, yeah, you've seen it lap after lap. More grip on the outside line. So Charlie Eastwood, I think he's on borrowed time here, to be fair to Sandy Mitchell, but Charlie's doing his absolute level best to hang on to second place. What's going to be interesting while these are squabbling is to see whether Dennis Lind can catch up in fourth place, because last time around he was a fraction slower, but now to the inside line goes Sandy Mitchell. That's an Agostini. Again, tighter line, but the grippier line on the outside is claimed by Charlie Eastwood. Now Sandy Mitchell has a go, stands his ground on the inside line. He's up alongside. Not quite, no. Charlie Eastwood is still able to use the power of the Aston on the grippier outside line to hang on to position, all of which plays right into the hands of Yelmer Berman.
Yes, who was 7.4 seconds ahead of this group at the start of the lap and has no success penalty to serve. The Aston Martin of Charlie Eastwood does have 10 seconds to serve, though, so the frustration here for Mitchell in particular, he's in a straight fight here with the Ram Racing Mercedes and is in danger of being more than 10 seconds behind anyway when they come into the pit lane. Now, as we said, that could all start to change again once the second drivers get on board, but you'd much rather be staying on turns with the race leader than having to try and close back in again in the second half of the race. Straight line speed, a little bit different now in the wet, isn't it? The cars that are going through the corners better, the mid-engine cars, are therefore able to carry the speed down the straight. So Marcus Clutton, fastest in the speed trap, 148 miles an hour, from then the Lamborghini of Dennis Lind.
News from Bryn in the pits about the Lamborghinis. It's not really a setup issue on 63, slightly different setup on number 1 for number 63 as the Mustang goes rally crossing. That is Matt Cowley, but it is more a case of Dennis Lind not being as familiar with Snetterton in the dry, never mind in the wet, compared to Sandy Mitchell. A 10-second stop-go penalty for number 33, Greg Caton, for causing a collision. That, I think, was against Marcus Klassen on the first lap, because an incident between 33 and 77 was being looked at. So Greg Caton given a 10-second stop-go for causing a collision, and it's a broken rear damper on the Toyota, says Christian Dick, the team principal that's put that car out of the race. As again, Sandy Mitchell has a go on the inside line, coming out of the hairpin. That's the outside line for turn 3. It's a grippier outside line, and it still doesn't work.
Eastwood got his elbows out there, didn't he? He knew exactly what was coming. If Mitchell had stayed alongside, he'd have been quicker off the corner. He is still quicker off the corner, and again forces Eastwood to defend. Now, is that the right move, though? Because this time Mitchell's got that grippier outside line, but Eastwood knows exactly where to place the car. Runs a bit too wide, though, and Mitchell's up the inside and through. Brilliant stuff. Sandy Mitchell, he really had to work for that, but that was good racing between the two. Good defensive driving from Eastwood without being too robust in his defence, and really great patient attacking driving from Sandy Mitchell. Exactly what you'd expect from him, really.
So if one Lamborghini can do it, can the other? So here comes Dennis Lind hunting him down. We had another typical Dennis Lind charge earlier on in the day, and what can he do now to try and gain ground? Of course, he was off the road briefly, and that is really what cost him a couple of places a few laps back on the restart. So Sandy Mitchell second, Charlie Eastwood third, and now again looking for the wet part of the road to keep the tyre life there. Dennis Lind closing on the Aston as Sandy Mitchell gets away. So the Lamborghini factory driver pulling clear. Dennis Lind, number 63, the championship leader. Again, he and Leo Machitsky have a decision to make in this race. Do you throw everything at every place, or do you just bank the points?
they're in a strong position, aren't they, championship-wise already? They've got this points advantage, and you could forgive them, maybe, for taking things easy in this one, but I don't think they will. They saw at Donington how quickly your season can be derailed. They'd had a strong start and then lost all of those points with the shunt at Donington Park, so they're going to want to try and bag the points when you can. I think as a general rule, that's the way to do it. If you have a chance to score well, do it, because you can't guarantee you'll be in the same position at the next round. GT3 pit window open, by the way, not the same mad rush to pit early this time, though, because the, in theory, quicker drivers are in the car, and also they want to see what the weather does.
Exactly. The later you stop, the better a handle you've got on the conditions. So it is a 10-minute window, which actually around here doesn't give you that many laps grace, of course, but it is a 10-minute window. As you see, Dennis Lind still chipping away at this deficit to Charlie Eastwood. Dennis Lind last week racing Audis in the 24 Hours of Spa, and a good result in a car registered for Intercontinental GT Challenge points means there might be another programme to be continued over the year. That's the 10-second stop-go being served by Greg Caton, the player manager at GCAT. So the Porsche stops, and you can see how much drier the road is now. I think it's going to be slicks, isn't it, on the pit stop if you're really, really courageous, but it's at that tipping point. The AMs might disagree in the GT3 cars with that, but in the GT4 Silvers, where you've got the evenly matched brace of young guns, it's going to be interesting to see what pans out from that. Ahmed Al-Harfi, probably out of the AM division, is the one that could cope the best.
Well, that's the thing, isn't it? Like you say, in GT3 and for some of the GT4 cars, it's the AM getting in. If it was the Pro, you might tell them, OK, look, we're going to send you out on slicks, you'll have no grip for the first 10 minutes, but then you'll be 5, 6, 7 seconds a lap quicker after that. But with it being the AMs, can you rely on them not to drop it? It's so hard to do. Go out there on cold, slick tyres, a damp and greasy track. I'd say it's too wet for slicks at the moment, but I think within the next 35 minutes, which is what's remaining in the race, it will dry out. So this is, I've been asking for this for a couple of years now. We've had wet races, we've had dry races, but a wet, dry race is always fascinating because of the tyre strategy. Yeah,
that's what we had at Donington, wasn't it, last year with the Bentley win in the second race. We had the 2 hours earlier, the 1 hour race that began wet and dried out, and there Dennis Lind goes through Coram with the Lamborghini looking really nervous there as he tries to find a bit of grip. So the pit window is still open, but Yelmer Berman does another lap before relaying Ian Loggy. Through for second place, Sandy Mitchell will go across the timing line. This is the fight for third. It's still Charlie Eastwood ahead then of Dennis Lind, and Mitchell's just done the fastest lap of the race then, so the gap is down to 9 seconds. It was half a second pull back, but half a second is quite some gain as Mitchell pounds on. Eastwood third, Lind fourth. The gap between these two is 0.6 of a second. Johnny Adam is still fifth, and Phil Keane in sixth place.
Nearly a full second faster was Mitchell. It was a 2:06.3 for Berman, a 5:4 for Mitchell. But there is Berman then. So this is what 9 seconds looks like. Maybe a bit less than that now, because Sandy Mitchell, you guess, has been a bit quicker through the first sector. Mitchell then appears in second. Then the battle for third. Charlie Eastwood and Dennis Lind about 3.5 seconds behind Mitchell. And then it's another Aston Martin Lamborghini battle right behind them. Johnny Adam and Phil Keane. The mid-engine cars, Lamborghinis of course included in that category, do tend to be a bit lighter on their tyres, and maybe now as the track is getting a bit drier, Dennis Lind on the inside, no, not into Hamilton's, maybe as the track is getting a bit drier and the wet tyres are starting to overheat on the front engine, Aston Martins and Mercedes out in front, maybe that's playing into the hands of these three Lamborghinis, the two Marvel examples and the WPI car in sixth position. They are appearing to be a little bit more comfortable at this phase of the stint.
So what to do about tyres? Some drivers think, according to Bryn, taking bets now, and is rain starting to fall again? We're getting reports of that from Bryn in the pits as well. So the track is drying, the rain is falling once more. Oh, this is the absolute weather from hell for the engineers, isn't it? As they're very close to the edge of Charlie Eastwood, the gap is going to be open, but even though he looks like he's out of control, he's still on the grippier line on the outside all the time. So Charlie Eastwood is doing a really good job here of repelling Dennis Lind. He knows exactly where to position the car. For Lind to overtake, he's got to go offline where it's wetter and where it's more slippery.
You can see the way the cars are almost floating now over the top of the circuit. Their tyres are overheating, the blocks on these wet Pirelli tyres are starting to move around, and look at the way that the car is in a beautiful sort of drift through the corners. It looks great. It ain't quick though. Through has gone the leader. The lap times are coming down by almost a second a lap now.
Yeah.
Last time around, Berman was in the 2-minute 6s. This time a 2-minute 5.7 compared to a 2-minute 5.1 for Mitchell. But how long can they wait it out? We're getting into the second half of the pit window now.
Well, Mitchell's done another fastest lap of the race, as you say, and has taken 6/10 out. As there, the Mustang tries to get ahead. Matt Cowley versus Jamie Stanley. This is for position. It is 15th overall, and the McLaren hangs on for the moment. But yes, the road is getting drier all the time. It's getting faster. And there you've got 61 Mustang hustling on in pursuit.
I think you have to go slicks unless it rains again, and we do have wipers back on. But look at the way that the tyres are struggling now after less than half an hour.
I said slicks, and you said, oh, no, it's the AMs. You said, oh, you've made your decision. You've already got the mechanics there with the tyres.
I don't remember that.
Now, this battle that's going on for third place, Charlie Eastwood, as the winner of the earlier race, 10 seconds to serve in the pits. Dennis Lind, 7. So Lind is close enough to jump ahead on the stops. And there, Matt Cowley jumps ahead of Jamie Stanley, former GT4 champion, gets through on the inside line, going into bomb hole. And now the Mustang, I think, is going to be able to stretch its legs and clear the McLaren, as Jelmer Berman's advantage, 8.4 seconds last time. And Sandy Mitchell isn't just doing fastest lap after fastest lap, as Dennis Lind again tries to get up the inside, and he's sideways. The tyres overheating rapidly. It's like driving on glass now. Sandy Mitchell, to finish that point, is closing sector by sector by sector, and by some margin. There is the second place Lamborghini. Dennis Lind again goes for the wet part of the road, still can't find a way through. Who is going to be the first to blink, to give up the unequal struggle on the tyres and come in?
But this little bit of rain that's back in the air, as you said, is at the worst possible moment. They've got no grip, though, and these tyres started their stint in full wet conditions, and they're still struggling now, half an hour later.
Now, GT3 pit stops we have not yet had. GT4 pit window is open, so when they come in, and in most cases want to do a tyre change, it's going to be a very crowded pit lane, which is why the staggered windows were introduced to try to avoid that, but they've run this as late as they dare. The GT4 teams might do the same, which sort of pushes back the problem, but the teams in GT4 land now are going to have to read the GT3 race to know exactly when to call in their car.
And in comes Phil Keane, so they are the first to blink. I was about to say, if you believe it's going to rain again, pit now, and then gain some time when you come back out of the pit lane, if they choose to change onto a fresh set of wets anyway, that is. So Phil Keane is in. Let's see what WPI do. He was in 6th position at the time he pitted, about 21 seconds off the lead. The driver change is being done. They are looking at the tyres but not changing them.
Replay here of the Bentley having a moment down at what we've now dubbed, I think, McLaren's, haven't we, after the incident we had earlier on with the 2 McLarens going off. Into the pit lane as well, cam 77 then, so that's Marcus Clutton. But doesn't look like there's a tyre change going on for either. Tyre pressure's being adjusted, yes, but there's no suggestion there that anyone's going to rush over with a new set of boots.
Bryn Lucas is lingering around the Balfe Motorsport garage, and they won't tell him what they're doing. Well, we're going to find out now, because that car is in as well, the Proctors, and that is Lewis getting out, Stewart getting in. And yeah, I think if you're going to pit early, then you have to sort of commit to staying on wets, don't you? It's those that are waiting it out that are the ones more likely to change. And speaking of changing, that is Lind for 3rd place on the outside of Eastwood. Although he was on the best side of the road, he couldn't make it stick, as now, look, the rain's back.
Absolutely right. And so Dennis Lind goes to the outside and almost runs out of road there. We're celebrating 70 years of Snetterton, which used to be a rallycross circuit, and you're about to see more of it. So down they come, side by side then, and now the Lamborghini on the outside line, down towards Brundle and Nelson. On the inside line is the Aston Martin. It's going to be the last of the late breakers. The tighter line is claimed by Eastwood, but the place is claimed by Dennis Lind. Fantastic, right round the outside. He has worked hard for that 3rd place. Lots of arm twirling inside the cockpit as he tries to straighten it up, but Dennis Lind goes 3rd. Sandy Mitchell is still closing on the race leader, and now Dennis Lind released, goes after him as in comes the leading car then at the end of lap 14. Jelmer Berman is in, and what is going to happen for Sandy Mitchell? He's got to come in because we're only about 30 seconds away from the window closing, so they're all going to dive in now.
Yeah, they had to do this, so as I've told you all along, they're going to stay on wet tyres at this pit stop, you know. In they all come, and the pit stop will be a more traditional one then. No need to change the tyres in these 60-minute races usually, unless it's because of weather changes.
Have you ever worked for a team? Because there's a reason if you haven't. Yes. So they're going on to a new set of tyres, the Ram Racing Mercedes. Now, they didn't look like full wets to me, but they didn't look like slicks either. So it's a fresh set of whatevers for number 6. Here comes number 7. That's Johnny Adam to give way to Andrew Howard. That is going to have a tyre change. But again, we can't really see what's going on to that car. I think it's another set of wets, isn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's wets again for the Mercedes.
Yes.
So the rain is getting heavier, Bryn tells us. There's the leading car ready to go. And it's pushed back, and then you've got that 4 seconds to select a gear and get away. Adam Vallant goes after Ian Loggy, and there is Seamus Jennings, who's lost a lap against the leading Mercedes there, but that's going to keep Loggy leading, isn't it?
Yes, and Ian's pretty handy in the wet, I seem to remember. So with a decent lead, you can see there the gap that he's got over now Adam Ballan out in the Lamborghini, and Adam hasn't always excelled in slippery conditions. You'd have to say this is looking good for Ram Racing to claim their first victory of the year. And look in the background, Michael Igoe, having taken over from Phil Keane. Remember, they came in that lap or so earlier, still not even coming across the start-finish line. There he is, so he's going to come out behind Machitsky and Andrew Howard is he, but he's got a bit more momentum, and he's got himself a bit more heat in the tyres. Maybe he's in the groove, having done a lap or so in these conditions already. He might be able to use this to get ahead of the Aston Martin.
Might be able to. Let's see then as they head up towards the Wilson hairpin. Andrew Howard suddenly discovers what the track conditions are like, and Michael Igoe, as you say, a lap into his stint, goes through up on the inside line, picks up the position. So straight away, it's paying dividends for WPI. They've gained a place over number 7 here.
It's not raining anymore, and the sun's coming back out again. So again, that wind blowing the rain through pretty quickly. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to say it.
Isn't it? It's exactly what you need to make a race, exactly what you don't need if you're trying to operate a car. Number 40 is in, Jamie Stanley to give way to Nick Halstead. 90 is in as well, Vallant, which is for now Ashley Marshall and Jack Brown to switch seats. 57 is in for Gus Burton to give way to Will Burns. That's got 21 seconds to serve, so it's going to be a longer stop for that car with its 14 seconds for 2 silver drivers, plus the success penalty, the pit stop time from earlier on. And wheel nut goes running across the pit lane there. Collected, taken back. Right, you're on board here, and that is the back of the number 7 Aston Martin. So does this suggest that the Gt4 McLaren is up with it now? Andrew Howard struggling in the conditions. It is Jordan Collard you're riding with. You can see how much drier the circuit is. Now Jordan's yet to stop. Andrew Howard on fresher tyres into a stint, and now the power kicks in. Gt3 Aston rockets away in a straight line.
Yes, but in the wet conditions, the GT3s can't really use all of that extra aero, can they, through the corners to power ahead of the GT4s. Right, there goes Ahmed Al-Harthi. He is pitted as well, just behind Andrew Howard. So that is a battle. No, sorry, Johnny Adam is still being registered in the number 7, but it has pitted, so I think that's a transponder issue. So it should be Andrew Howard battling Ahmed Al-Harthi. Those two have both stopped, and we did say that Al-Harthi could be pretty handy in this stint.
Indeed. Now bear in mind that 97 had a longer pit stop by 5 seconds than number 7, and he's caught it straight up again. Ahmed Al-Harthi is using his experience to good effect here, so there's going to be a switch, I think, between the 2 Aston Martins heading up towards the timing line. So through goes now Andrew Howard, who is going to be in 5th place. On his tail is Ahmed Al-Harthi. He has a look but can't do it and slots back in behind.
3.6 seconds, the gap between Loggy and Ballan out in front. Al-Harthi is 33.5 off the lead, though, so I think even if he can clear Andrew Howard now, it's going to be a tough ask to make the podium, isn't it?
But it's an interesting lead gap, as there Al-Harthi almost gets onto the dirt, because from what was 8 seconds before the pit stops, 3 seconds now, it has come right down, and neither of those leading cars had any rogue pit stop penalties to sort out. So a lot of time seems to have been lost there by the Mercedes, either on its in lap or on its out lap, as there now also, look, is the number 63 Lamborghini. Now Leo Machitsky had to serve 7 extra seconds, whereas the WPI car had 0 to serve, and Michael Igoe presses on, but Leo Machitsky, who again is a very experienced driver, he could be very handy in these conditions.
Yes, just lost that 3rd place to Igoe though. Machitsky was ahead at the line, but Igoe's gone through the first part of the lap. They are still 20-odd seconds off the leading 2 though, so Loggy and Ballan have a decent margin. In the sectors, they're pretty equal, with Loggy a bit quicker in the middle sector though, so Ian, I think, settling into this now on his first full flying lap. As the 2 Aston Martin GT3s head through as well. The number 40 McLaren, by the way, Nick Halstead now at the wheel. They're just putting a lap on him. I think that car's going to come out somewhere towards the pointy end in GT4. It's had no success penalty to serve and is the highest placed Pro-Am car in GT4, therefore didn't have that extra 14 seconds to take either.
Well, there goes the leading car then. Over the timing line goes Ian Loggy, and the car behind had done the fastest lap early on in the hands of Sandy Mitchell. The gap has gone up then, 4 seconds now between the top 2 cars. So is that advantage Mercedes once more? It's about time that car had a bit of luck, really, isn't it? Especially after its dramas at Spa. But who knows what the track conditions are going to do in the remaining 22.5 minutes, as around Wilson, with, again, having to fight the car for traction, goes Adam Ballan. Michael Igoe is in 3rd place, and Igoe lapping fractionally slower than Ballan last time around, and it was a slow lap by Leo Machitsky as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, lost the place to Igo, but that doesn't account for a lap time that was 8 seconds off the pace of the leaders. So yeah, I think he might have had a moment somewhere. Gt4 Pit Stops just cycling through now then, and it does look as though that number 40 car, well, it's ahead of both of the Century Motorsport BMWs. Look, there goes the McLaren. Here come the BMWs side by side, right in front of Andrew Howard, whilst behind Will Moore was sideways, right in front of Ahmed Al-Hardi, who's really lost out in traffic there.
Has indeed. So if he can clear the traffic, then he can go after the Beechdene Aston. But there, number 9 BMW gets in the way, gets a tap in the tail. Number 9 BM, which is the car that had the oil leak earlier on, is on an out lap. So Chris Solkeld has taken it over. And all of a sudden, for the GT3 cars, life becomes very crowded indeed. Will Moore in the Mustang tries to get up the inside. And of course, here through the twiddly bits on a greasy road, the GT3 cars almost getting in the way of GT4 traffic again.
Yeah, absolutely. Cowley there, though, Moore, excuse me, taking full advantage of the fact that Chris Salkeld hasn't quite got himself up to speed yet, has he, to move through. On board then with the number 2 car, this is now James Kell at the wheel. Tell you what, he's not going to be that far away from the front of the GT4 field, despite serving that big success penalty, all 10 seconds of it. He's just moved ahead of his teammate there, number 3, Alain Vallant, who, remember, stuck that car on pole position and was leading the first race today before a puncture unfortunately took them out of contention. And already, I mean, we're still 21 minutes from the end and they're hunting for wet track. So that shower that came about 10 minutes ago, it just didn't quite dump enough water on the track, did it? They're going to start struggling for tyres again.
They are, which is going to make it really interesting at the end, especially as in the majority of cases here we're talking AMS. So heading down through the right-hander at Bombhole, this is Jordan Collard's car now with James Kell at the wheel. It is 13th, and there is an investigation brewing over number 57 BMW, we understand. But down towards turn 12, the GT4 cars snake their way up towards the timing line once again. There you've got number 2, James Kell, had his first GT win earlier on in the day, and now taking over from Jordan Collard. You can see the track surface as well. It's just greasy, isn't it? It's not wet, it's not dry. It is just a really very treacherous track on which they've got to cope for another 20 minutes or so.
I may not be able to predict the weather or indeed what tyres you should be on, but Nick Halstead is leading in GT4, which I did think might be the case, by not very much though over Will Burns. That GT4 battle we're watching here, in fact they were overlapping out of the Wilson hairpin. That's for the lead in the GT4 class. So this is the 2 McLarens at play for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th place in class, but about 5 or so seconds up the road. Look, there are the top 2 in GT4. So Nick Halstead, in his first season of GT racing really, certainly at this level, trying to fend off Will Burns, the championship leader. He looks to the inside into Agostini, but is there any grip on the inside? That's the question. Gets his nose ahead, gets across the nose of the McLaren. Change of lead in GT4.
Indeed so, but is there any chance of that McLaren coming back? Well, we have a stop-and-go penalty now being applied for 57. So, having just taken over the lead of the class, I said there was an investigation brewing. It was for being too short on the pit stop, so it's a stop-go penalty for number 57 BMW. It has just taken over the lead, and bang, suddenly it has got to make another stop, and then a go. So stop-go penalty will drop it down in class. The regulation time is 100 seconds plus for that car, 21. The data is there. It rates a beam at pit in, a beam at pit out, and if it's under the requisite number, you're back to rights, aren't you?
Yeah, can't really argue with that, can you? So that will put Nick Halstead back into the class lead, but he's going to have a busy 18.5 minutes here, isn't he? Because here's a bronze-graded driver surrounded by silvers, and that's one of them, Will Moore. Really good car control, that, but it wasn't the quickest way through, Nelson. He is going to be the next one to move up to challenge Halstead. If Nick can fend this lot off, then he deserves the race victory and the winner's trophy, because these drivers, in theory, should be quicker than him. Are the front-engine cars like the Mustang, they're going to chew through their tyres a little bit more? It's a BMW behind, again, another big, heavy front-wheel drive, front-engine car, I should say. Is that maybe going to bring things back to Halstead in the second half of the stint?
There's 57 bailing for the pit lane. Please, can we just watch the Mustang for the next 18 minutes? A sideways Mustang, it's like watching Bullet, isn't it? Over the line then goes Will Moore. There is 57 into the pit lane. So this is Will Burns to serve the stop-go penalty, but he is tumbling down the order. It's not that long a pit lane, but because GT4 was very competitive, he's losing place after place. So go, 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 say the officials. Will Burns blasts back out there, and he is going to rejoin in 17th place, having been 11th when he came in. And now Ahmed Al-Hafi makes his move to the inside of Andrew Howard. There is a gap. There's mercifully no contact, and again, it's just about finding the traction.
Absolutely no grip, and they've got to stay out on these tyres that are getting hotter and hotter and more worn for another 17 minutes. That is going to be a real challenge for them, isn't it? Yep. That's another 7 or 8 laps they're going to have to manage here. Here comes Al-Hafi. The drivers are really going to have to work for this one. It's brilliant news for us, but they are going to be well and truly worn out, because the car is moving around underneath them every time they try and apply either pedal, any steering input. It just doesn't want to go where they're pointing it.
And they don't know what it's like lap from lap, because it's drying at the moment, and therefore things are changing as they're looking for the wetter part of the road. Is Ahmed Al-Hafi. He's also looking to get past Andrew Howard. Just up the road ahead is Leo Machitsky, who is still falling away quite markedly, actually, from the 3 ahead. He did a 2 minutes 8 when they were doing 2 minutes 5s. He's now doing 2 minutes 10s against 2 minutes 8. So the 63 Lamborghini is falling away. If these two could work together, they'd be up and past him, I reckon, and it won't be long before they are there, as now to the outside line goes Ahmed Al-Hafi. This is really brave stuff, and he's done it! Fantastic! Right round the outside, and he gets it slowed down in time for turn 12. Brilliant job. Ahmed Al-Hafi deserves that place.
And despite the fact these two were side by side, they were both significantly quicker than Machitsky through that sequence, which shows the lack of confidence that Leo's got at the moment. I think his 4th place may not last that much longer. Significantly, remember, though, the 63 car managed to beat the Beach Dean Aston Martin in the previous race, and those are the top 2 in the GT3 Championship. Can Andrew Howard maybe get one back here?
Yes, on the current evidence, I would say so, because Leo Machitsky, for whatever reason, is struggling, unless that car wants a really dry track at the end and it might come alive again. But there, the Aston Martins then, still with Al-Hafi ahead of Andrew Howard, are ganging up on the Lamborghini. And Leo Machitsky for Barwell has got the TF Sport and the Beach Dean AMR entries behind him and almost alongside him, but running out wide is Al-Hafi. Kicks up the dirt, so it's going to be a really slippy track by the end of this as people run wide and bring all the rubbish back onto the racetrack. Al-Hafi goes deep into Agostini, tries the outside line against the Lamborghini, and nothing happens then. Now there's a bit of traction, they can come out the other side. It's like a dog on lino, isn't it? But eventually something bites, the car kicks in, it finds some traction, and the twitching Aston in the middle of that shot is the car of Ahmed Al-Hafi, which is the quickest of the 3, right onto the tail of the Lamborghini.
The last shot we saw before we come back to this, by the way, was on the Ford Mustang leading in GT4, so Wilmore did get past Nick Halstead on the previous lap. Another lead change in GT4 then, but what about the change here for 4th place in GT3, because Al-Hafi is a lot quicker out onto that Bentley straight. He pulls to the right-hand side of the road, and that is where I'd want to be, because it's the outside for Brundle, but the inside for Nelson. He's got the horsepower, he's got the grippier side of the road, but Machitsky has the bit between his teeth here to try and fend him off, and he does. Brilliant stuff. Leo Machitsky is not as quick as these two, but he's doing a really good job to keep them behind. Can he do it for another 14.25 minutes? Well, that's going to be some ass, but really entertaining to watch.
There are lots of different reasons why Machitsky needs to defend like crazy here. One is to bank points, the other, and he's not going to do it for much longer. Al-Hafi does his Demon Corum line again, right round the outside to gain the place before turn 12. I was about to say, as Machitsky tries to come back at him, the other reason was to keep a car between himself and championship rival Andrew Howard, but the Aston has cleared him. Leo Machitsky tries to get the power down in a straight line and almost comes back level as they cross the timing line. The Lamborghini will have its nose in front just as they go down towards turn 1. But he can't go round the outside, and he's lucky in a way that he could just about cut across the front of Andrew Howard. But now Andrew will have seen all of that, and he's looking to try to gain the place. A pit lane incident involving the number 40, Jamie Stanley, Nick Halstead McLaren, to be investigated after the race.
Okay, don't know what that is exactly, but that is the car that's running second in GT4 at the moment, and yes, is still second, but Chris Salkeld in the BMW is right behind him now. Wilmore has gone, look, there he is, disappearing from sight. He leads in GT4. Second, third, fourth and fifth, though, absolutely together. 3 McLarens surrounding the leading Century Motorsport BMW now, after the 57 car had that penalty. And Nick Halstead driving well here, in fairness, against drivers that are a bit quicker and a bit more experienced than him. To the inside goes Salkeld, gets his full car ahead, actually. See if you can do that, then the inside line works. If you can block the path of the car on the outside coming off the corner, that's the way to make the pass on the inside work.
Now they're going through is number 9, which is Chris Solkel. The McLaren battle, don't forget these are teammates. James Kell just ahead of Alain Vallant, and a 23-second stop-and-go penalty for the Bentley, number 11. Now Kelvin Fletcher at the wheel because it stopped outside the pit window. So the Bentley was further back in the pack. They obviously left it too late. The window had closed just before they came in. So possibly having missed it by 23 seconds, that is why that car is going to be given a 23-second stop-go. But it stopped outside the window anyhow, and a 23 stop-and-go penalty for number 11 Bentley. It is now Kelvin Fletcher at the wheel of it. What's going on in McLaren land? Bob Neville's RJN cars still just James Kell ahead of Alain Vallant here.
Yep, that is the order they were at the start of the lap, but Vallant looks quicker actually, doesn't he, at the moment?
Yeah.
Both of these silver-graded drivers, but Alain Vallant, I would argue we haven't seen the best really of either of these McLaren driver development programme cars, the numbers 3 and 4 from Rocket RJM, because they've just been plagued by misfortune all season. But this weekend, they've really shown what they're capable of, especially this car that was so unfortunate in the earlier race. Can they get into contention at least for a class podium today? That seems possible because, well, this is actually for third place in the silver class within GT4. An overall podium surely is beckoning as well.
Fascinating fact 37 is that Ahmed Al-Harfi has done the fastest lap of the race last time through. So in the so-called AM stint, Ahmed Al-Harfi does the fastest lap. Vallant comes up to have a go at James Kell and tries to squeeze up the inside into turn 12. He's going to do it. Is he? Yeah, goes through on the inside, forces James up the curb, and they're both about to get mugged, I think, by the GT3 McLaren there, the Enduro Motorsport car, 77, Morgan Tilbrook at the wheel of it. That is in 7th place overall and goes storming through.
Yeah, on board then with James Kell. What further progress can Vallant make, though? He's got another McLaren ahead of him, but he should, in theory, be quicker than Nick Halstead, and that would be for third place. He's got 2 McLarens ahead of him, actually. One of them is the Morgan Tilbrook Enduro GT3 car, which goes up the inside to put a lap on Halstead, and now the 3 McLarens in GT4 are together, 3rd, 4th and 5th then in the class. The other question is whether or not Chris Solkel's got the pace to go after Will Moore. I don't think he does. He was about 7/10 slower than Will on the previous lap, although there was an overtake, wasn't there, in the early part of that lap for the number 9 car.
Interesting to see how many lap times are coming down, though, either in terms of GT3 or GT4. There is the 23-second stop-go penalty for the Bentley. That's being served. We've got 10 more minutes of the race to go. It's flown by this, hasn't it? And Ian Logie leads by 6.4 seconds from Adam Ballan.
You can tell it's getting drier. Do you know how? Track limits warnings coming in.
Yeah, it's true.
They're
it's
all
true.
getting a bit confident now, aren't they?
And trying their own lines, yes. It's coming for GT4 cars mainly. James Kell has been warned, and so also has Jack Brown. The McLaren's there, as number 40 Nick Halstead loses another place, because up and past him first of all goes James Kell. Goes Alain Vallant, I should say, slithers out wide. James Kell's going to be the next one to have a go. But yes, it is being like on a single venue rally at the moment, isn't it? The track surface is so slippery. But the Mustang hangs on to a class lead. Will Moore doing a very good job, 4.5 seconds to the good last time, and is building that margin in the sectors as well.
I don't think Academy have had a win since, was it Brands Hatch last year? So it's been a long time. They certainly haven't won yet this year. This is exactly what they need to get their season back on track. Now, this is Andrew Howard on the tail of Leo Machitsky still for 5th position. So he, Andrew Howard this is, does not seem to have the performance Ahmed Al-Hardi does, because Ahmed looked a lot quicker than Machitsky, didn't he, and found a way through at Coram. Yep. Andrew just hasn't been able to do that, and they're 6.3 seconds now behind the 97 Aston Martin. It was only 3 or 4 laps ago at the most that Al-Hardi got past Machitsky, and he's already cleared off.
And in turn, he's trying to close on Michael Igoe, but Michael Igoe last time did the fastest lap of the race, can you believe? 2 minutes 3.425. So Michael Igoe now sets the fastest lap, and that might change again before the end, because the road is continuing to try and get faster. There are more and more purples in sectors coming up, as well as lap times, as there Leo Machitsky, thinking points, tries to fend off Andrew Howard, and not only is he keeping him at bay, the margin is stretching out again between them. It was 4/10, it's greater than that now, as this is the leader, Ian Logie. He's about to complete 23 laps, 8 minutes to go just, and a lap is about 2 minutes and 4 seconds at the moment.
Yes, it is. So we're into the closing stages then, and Logie not setting purple sectors, but doesn't really need to. He's 6.3 ahead of Adam Ballan, who was a couple of tenths quicker on the last lap, but that's not going to make a huge amount of difference, really. Michael Igoe coming through in third position. Been a good little run, this, hasn't it, for WPI? They've had a solid day today with, well, 7th, I suppose, in the previous race after that damage, but good to see them back on the pace.
Michael Igoe, 2 fastest laps in succession there. There, again, looking for the wetter part of the road is Ahmad Al-Hafi. So at the moment, 2 minutes 4 for the leader, but 2 minutes 3 for Michael Igoe. Now, Michael is lapping 1.8 seconds quicker than the leader, but he's 22.5 seconds back, so he ain't going to catch for the lead. He's got to make up 16 seconds for second place, which is just about too tall an order, I fear. As here, Andrew Howard has been spurred into action again, look, because he has caught right up to the tail of Leo Machitsky. This is 5th and 6th places. 2 very quick AMs, both. The experienced Leo Machitsky keeping ice cream magnate Andrew Howard behind him. Andrew came out of mini racing and British GT champion. Now the 2 go down towards the left-hander of Palmer, and as they turn out of the corner, this is what's happening in GT4. This is the leader. This is 61 Will Moore, and again, look, penduluming his way out of turn 12 there. A set of sideways Mustang was good to watch. There's more evidence of it. So Will Moore heads up toward the line. The Academy Motorsport car is top of the class in GT4, as it were. Over the timing line it goes. And have a look in the background, you'll see the BMW. Ignore number 5, because although that is right with the Mustang, it's a lap up and it's an 8th overall. They're second in GT4, number 9 BMW. But number 3 McLaren is the one that's on a mission. Alain Vallant now is absolutely charging. His last lap, a 2:14.0, and he's trying to close on Chris Solkelt. There's James Kell going through in 4th. Kicking up the dirt. There, with its back to you, was the 5th place GT4 car of Nick Halstead.
Yep, so Academy leading the way then with 6 minutes to go. I said they hadn't had a win this year. They've not even had a GT4 podium, you know. But with driving like that, it's going to be a well-deserved podium. In fairness, they're all doing, again, the tyres are overheating. They just don't have the grip, and especially those heavy front-engine cars, they just wallow through the corners in these conditions. But they're doing well, aren't they? Front-engine cars first and second in GT4, but for how much longer? Because Vallant is charging.
He is indeed, and also it's all very well doing this drifting bit, but you've got to look after the tyres as best you can. And what we don't need anybody to have is a last lap puncture, which would throw things up in the air. You can see the savvy drivers still going for those wetter parts of the road, but if you've got the grip underneath you, the tendency is to stay on the dry bit, isn't it? There, number 3 is Alain Vallant. Now, his last lap was a 2:14.096, the car's best. Fractionally slower, actually, than Chris Solkelt, but the way that he's driving, it does suggest that he's the quicker of the 2. Maybe Solkelt is slightly smoother, and that's what's keeping him ahead.
Yep, quite possible. And the sun now shines down on the Snetterton circuit, just in time for the checkered flag to fall. 5 minutes to go. There is the Ford Mustang, which just has no grip at the rear. Solkelt not having a much better time of it, but very different lines there, look. A very wide line, the traditional wet line for Will Moore. Solkelt and Vallant both taking the usual dry line, hitting the apex curve there on the inside into Nelson. Sideways goes the Mustang. Wait for it. Sideways doesn't really go the BMW, so I think you might be onto something there. It looks like quite a reserved driving style for Solkelt, but in these conditions, that is what you need. I just don't think he's got the raw pace to get after Will Moore ahead of him.
What about Andrew Howard's raw pace relative to that of Leo Machitsky? Because he has been staring at the back of that Lamborghini for 10 minutes or so now, and he's still staring at it. We've got 4 minutes on the clock. Michael Igoe, another fastest lap of the race last time around. He's now 13 seconds off Adam Ballan, but that looks like a bone-dry circuit all of a sudden. It's not quite, but with the sun shining and the spray having completely disappeared, overheating wet tyres now need to be managed. And as the leaders go on to their 25th lap, now the 26th, that's 25 in the book, there is Ian Logie through once again. This has become a very easy stint, relatively speaking. Yes, track conditions not so good for him, but he doesn't have to worry about pressure from behind. And Jelmer Bergman did an absolutely perfect first stint. The gap between him and Ballan, though, is down by over a second. It's 3.9 between the top 2. There's going to be one more lap at the end of this. Michael Igoe is 11 seconds back with another ultimate fastest lap, 2 minutes 2.270. So Ballan, for the last 3 laps, has been closing, and Igoe is lapping even quicker.
On the previous lap, Michael Igoe was nearly 3 seconds faster than Adam Ballan in second place.
Yes.
If only there'd been a safety car or something, because I don't think he's got time still to get there, but that is an incredible pace, and I'm fairly sure Ballan will still be pushing on, because as you said, he's lapping quicker than the leader, Ian Logie. Traffic possibly had something to do with that, I guess, but
Yep. but Ballant's been quicker for the last 3 laps, as we saw on that graphic. So I think that it's either Ian Loggy being ultra cautious, in which case he can up his pace at the very end. I'm not sure necessarily whether Adam Vallant is going to have a realistic chance of the win, but very definitely the gap between the top 2 is coming down, and the gap second to third is coming down as well.
Sandy Mitchell was quicker than Jelmer Berman in the last 5 or so minutes of his stint. So, and I said at the time, maybe the Lamborghini looks after its tyres better being mid-engined. Don't know, that might be the case. In the sectors then, Ballant half a second faster in sector 1 and then matches Loggy in the middle sector actually. So both of them personal bests in the middle sector. With 1 lap to go at the end of this, it's not quite going to be enough unless Loggy makes a mistake. But what Ballant is doing is he's keeping the pressure on Ian Loggy. Loggy cannot afford to trip over a back marker, lock up, run a bit too wide. 1 mistake and Ballant will be right on his tail.
Well, there is Adam Ballant then. He's in second spot. They're going to start the last lap this time. Ian Loggy has just got to get out of jail free card as well, look, because he's put 2 back markers between himself and Ballant. So no matter what the green Lamborghini does in terms of pace, it would have to clear that traffic as well. So Loggy leads onto the last lap. Adam Ballant has done a good job in second place here. Really challenging conditions for the AMs, and is Michael Igoe about to do another fastest lap? It was a 2 minutes 2.2 last time around. That's Adam Ballant second. Igoe does a 2 minutes 2.6, so fractionally slower. But for Ian Loggy and Jelmer Berman, an overdue victory is heading Ram Racing's way.
In the background there, I saw Will Burns passing Nick Halstead. Remember when Will was given that 10-second stop-go, he had just overtaken Nick Halstead for the class lead.
Right.
He served a penalty and still been able to get back ahead of the number 40 McLaren, such is his pace advantage. Not been a brilliant day, actually, for Century. Probably their worst weekend of the season so far, and that's exactly what the rest of the GT4 field wanted to happen, with all respect, because Century were building what looked like an unassailable lead in the GT4 Championship.
But what about the chances of Ram Racing now, with the doubleheader at Alton Park and then the Donington decider still to come? Are they going to be able to get back into the championship assault? Well, right now, a race win is on the cards. Ian Loggy being mindful of the traffic, being mindful of the track conditions, but a very, very impressive drive this by Ian Loggy. He's not put a wheel out of line, he's just quietly got on with it, built on that great first stint by Jelmer Berman, and so Ian Loggy leads down towards Brundle and Nelson for the last time, clearing the back markers. In second place, Adam Ballant in the first sector is slower this time. That could be the back markers. Look, again, Loggy desperately tries to find somewhere that's got grit, but also could cool the tyres down. He comes towards bomb hole for the last time. It's going to be beautifully timed this. The flag is imminent, and now, having had heavy rain just before the start, sunshine to round out the second race of the day for the Intelligent Money British GT Championship. And Ian Loggy fights the car round Corham, sets it up now to come down towards the last left of the lap, turns it in, keeps it off the wet painted curb, now accelerates up towards the timing line, and it is going to be a dominant win for Ram Racing for Jelmer Berman and Ian Loggy, who comes up towards the checkered flag. Ian Loggy and Jelmer Berman win at Snetterton in race 2 of the day. Second across the line is Adam Ballant and Sandy Mitchell, 4.6 seconds back, and third, Michael Igoe with Phil Keane. Fastest lap on the last lap of the race, 2 minutes 1.592, proof that the road was getting ever drier. So Michael Igoe, a really, really impressive stint, and that was a team that got the setup for the dry road absolutely spot on, but perhaps not so good for the greasy conditions, whereas in GT4 it's going to be a very popular win, seemingly, for the Mustang.
Yeah, about time, really, for Academy Motorsport. They've got to hang on, though, for this final lap, and Wilmore is maybe starting to feel some pressure here. Salkeld on the previous lap was 1.7 seconds quicker. He is 2.7 seconds back as they start the final lap. It would probably require a mistake or a problem for the Ford Mustang for this to change, but Wilmore can't afford a mistake here, with Salkeld 2.8 seconds back and setting personal best lap times, whereas the Mustang about half a second off its personal best on that last lap.
So Wilmore drifts it onto Bentley Straight. And of all the races to win, one in these conditions you would think definitely wouldn't suit a Mustang, but in part it's down to good driving, good pit work, and also, of course, the way that the different pit stop penalties play out. Chris Salkeld there in second place, and he in turn is only a second and a half up on Alain Vallant, so that might yet change before the very end as the Mustang slithers its way out of the S's up towards the bomb hole then for the final time. Turns right. Great noise that car makes, and Wilmore now accelerates on towards the right-hander of Corham. turns into the penultimate corner of the lap. You can just hear how careful he's being with the throttle, desperately hoping there's some grip where he needs it to be, down to the last corner. And so for Academy Motorsport, Will Moore will bring it home after that good first stint by Matt Cowley. But you can see the way the gaps have come down for second and third in the class there, because as Will Moore and Matt Cowley win in GT4, second over the line will be Chris Solkelt and Andrew Gordon-Colebrook. That car that started last on the grid, don't forget, as a very happy Matt Cowley is on the pit wall. And for third is the number 3 McLaren, started by Michael Benyaya and brought home by Alain Vallant. But a very happy Academy Motorsport team, and Andy Dean there with the headset on, applauding everybody as they have done it. The Mustang comes home victorious. But let's have a look at the overall results. Oh no, let's have a look at GT4 then, shall we? Matt Cowley is the joint winner with Will Moore in GT4, and in second in the class, Chris Solkelt and Andrew Gordon-Colebrook. This is how overall it looks. Jelmer Berman and Ian Logie, the race winners, ahead of Sandy Mitchell and Adam Ballon, with Phil Keane and Michael Igoe in third. Almana Hartley and Charlie Eastwood fourth, from Leo Machitsky and Dennis Lind. Leo fending off Andrew Howard to the very end, Andrew sharing with Johnny Adam. The Proctors were seventh. After the penalty, Plowman and Fletcher eighth. After the penalty, Jennings and Caton were ninth. And then, here's one I prepared earlier. The GT4 winners, Matt Cowley and Will Moore, ahead of Chris Solkelt and Andrew Gordon-Colebrook. Alain Vallant and Michael Benyaya taking third in GT4, 12th overall, ahead of Jordan Collard and James Kell. And then after their penalty, Will Burns and Gus Burton, 14th, Nick Halstead and Jamie Stanley, 15th overall. Harry Hayek and Katie Milner, 16th, ahead of Jack Brown and Ashley Marshall, with then we have Morgan Tilbrook and Marcus Classen delayed early on, and Matt Topp and Darren Turner also 3 laps down. We lost the Team Parker Porsche, the Ginetta, the Toyota and the Sicily Mercedes all very early in the race. So drama all the way through, but a very, very impressive effort by these two, by Ian Logie, and with the cap on Jelmer Berman, who did that first stint. We need them for the podium, so the SRO officials, the championship manager Lauren Granville there, ushering them down the pit lane. But Jelmer Berman, who had to bail out of the 24 Hours of Spa last week, but he's back racing and back winning. So good to see him back, and good that Jelmer is successful in British GT. There's the GT4 winning Mustang, and that's a really, really good, popular result, isn't it?
Yeah, it is a popular car for all the reasons that we've waxed lyrical about for the last hour, really. It looks incredible, it sounds incredible, and when it goes past you and you're watching trackside, it's an event. You know that car is coming long before you can see it, and you can still hear it long after it's gone out of sight. And when it is in view, it's usually sideways and bouncing along over the curbs. And Will Moore and Matt Cowley both drive it brilliantly well, it must be said. There is Matt Cowley. You know he's a good driver because he learnt his trade in Formula Ford 1600 racing, which I still maintain is the place to go if you want to learn about car control and racecraft and close quarters racing, all of which came in handy in that race. And Will Moore and Matt Cowley, that's Will Moore's first win in that car, I think, isn't it? Because it wasn't Will in the car last year when they won at Brands Hatch. So Matt Cowley's second win and Will Moore's first. But Academy Mustang, who have been knocking on the door of a good result all year, finally get it, as you said, in the conditions that you would have probably least predicted it.
Yeah, you'd have gone for something light and nimble, maybe, not the grunt and go Mustang, but very, very well driven by both. It's interesting as well, isn't it, to see how Will Moore has developed, because he's become now one of the quick drivers in GT4, and taking that first victory in the car, a very good result indeed. But for an overall win, Ian Logie and Jelmer Berman are victorious. They can finally celebrate with Bryn Lucas.
Very, very happy, as you'd imagine, and it all started with you, Jelmer. Off the line, you got away, you got a great start, and really from that point it was maintaining.
Well, yeah, in a way. I mean, obviously we had a safety car intervention, but I mean, in the end, I was lucky to just have the GT4 in between, and managed to slow it right down when the safety car lights went off, and then I could obviously accelerate a bit earlier and create a gap there. So that was good. Start was good too. We knew it was critical to grab the lead at that point, because when you're behind, it's a lot more difficult to overtake when you have the spray and so on. So starting on the outside here in the wet is actually not too bad.
But you went round the outside of Dennis Lind. I mean, that takes something made of steel, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, I mean, he wasn't going to give up easy. I could tell by his braking point. And I thought, well, I'm not going to brake earlier. So it was like, a bit, but then I think at both at the same time we realized now we really have to brake, and no, everything was good, and the team did a mega job. The car was really good all weekend, actually, in qualifying, in the dry, in the race, in the wet. It was really really good. So thank you Mercedes AMG and Ram Racing for an awesome car.
And Ian, you brought the car home, so Jelmer did the start of it and you finished it off.
Yeah, it's been a bit of a struggle all weekend for me in the dry, and I've never really shown the pace that I would have hoped to have shown. But when it rained in that second race, and we had some good free practice in the rain and were really quite quick, so I was sort of doing the rain dance in the truck, and I was rewarded with a little bit of wet. It was getting tough at the end because it was starting to dry out, but yeah, it was nice to come here and get a win. I think the championship's wide open again, and we go to Alton Park, which is my favourite circuit, so yeah, bring it on.
It explains the funny outfit and the dancing I saw. Well done to both of you, great stuff.
Cheers.
Jelmer Berman, David, makes a very good point there, actually, doesn't he? Because that safety car restart, they had about a 3.6 second lead, didn't they, by the time they crossed the line? They only won by 4.6 in the end.
Now, Dennis Lind and Leo Machitsky continue in the lead of the championship, with Ian Loggie and Jelmer Berman very much back in the championship fight, up to second ahead of Andrew Howard. Then Adam Vallant and Sandy Mitchell, Michael Igoe and Phil Keane come next, and of course Johnny Adam having had to miss the Spa event down in 6th. So yes, with a similar format of 2 races at Alton Park, it's going to be very interesting on the basis of the results here. Now let's hear from our GT4 winners as well. Will Moore and Matt Cowley are there with Bryn down in the pit lane.
They look like they're all calm and collected, but tell me what's really going on. I mean, you've just won in the Mustang in the wet. Tell me about that. Let's start with you, Matt.
Yeah, I mean, the car was mega all weekend, like especially in the wet. Then the team did a fantastic job setting up Academy Motorsport. I made a little mistake in my stint, managed to reel a bit of time back in because the car was so good. We were the quickest car on track. Gave it over to Will, and then Will finished off really, really strong. Did a mega job all race, and yeah, he smashed out the park.
First ever win in British GT for you, Will, and some drifting going on.
Plenty of drifting going on. It was good fun, really good fun out there. The car was really well balanced in the wet, so it allowed you to drift a little bit. But just big thank you to Academy Motorsport and Ford Performance and Multimatic as well.
It's just happened, so it's hard for you, isn't it, to really know what it feels like. But just talk us through the emotion you feel having your first ever win in British GT.
I was buzzing. There was a few tears in the helmet when I was coming in. I was a little bit like, oh, hopefully I don't see this on the way in. But yeah, I'm absolutely ecstatic. Really pleased.
Well, huge congratulations. Well done, gents.
Cheers. Thanks.
So the drivers will now head to the podiums. And of course there are GT3 and GT4 and the different categories within, as the drivers now will be called forward. So there, the Silver Cup winners, the Proctors, I think I'm right in saying, Colin and Sundowis and Stuart Proctor for the GT3 Silver aspect of the race, and then up come Michael Igoe and Phil Keane for their class result. Adam Vallant, Sandy Mitchell for second place, and then the race winners, Ian Loggie and Jelmer Berman, head to the top step of the podium. So 3 different teams across the top 3, 2 different brands, admittedly, Mercedes and then the 2 Lamborghini pairs, but a very good drive indeed by Jelmer Berman, and brave stuff in the wet right at the start of the race.
Yeah, I mean, that first corner arguably won them the race because it got them in front, and then circumstance allowed them to build that advantage considerably on the restart. But then a really good measured drive by Ian Loggie as well. Didn't let the tyres wear out too much, and yeah, their first win of the season, and as we saw, it brings them right back into contention. But we seem to say this every round, don't we? There's always a team that is right back in contention again, and then we rock up at a different racetrack a few weeks later and it all changes again. We've only got, though, 2 events still to go, so it's going to be a fascinating championship running, isn't it?
Both in GT3 and in GT4. Next stop, Alton Park, over the weekend of the 11th and 12th of September. So, again, because of the pandemic, it's had to be switched away from its regular Easter date, but it's still going to be a very good weekend of action, no doubt, around the international circuit at Alton Park. Right, now the GT4 drivers are set to step forward. So up go Alain Vallant and Michael Benyaya for third within the GT4 division. So it's been a good weekend for the RJN team, sort of exorcising those demons from the Spa weekend. Chris Solkeld and Andrew Gordon-Colebrook second, bearing in mind they retired from the first race with the oil leak and the wheel bearing dramas. But a first win for Will Moore with Matt Cowley in the Mustang, and a very happy Will Moore goes to the top step of the podium, and that's well deserved. A car like that, not the easiest to deal with in these conditions.
Yeah, and Academy in their second year of running that car now, of course. Ford Mustangs championship front runners a couple of years ago in the hands of the American Multimatic squad, and good to see Academy now having shifted over from Aston Martins a couple of years ago, really starting to get to grips now with the Mustang, not just in the dry but in the wet as well, and the drivers getting pretty wet now, and wet and sticky in the champagne shower on the winners podium. And yeah, GT4 ain't over yet, is it? 57 having a bit of a weekend to forget, really, by their standards anyway. The 9 car with that non-finish as well, so Century's grip on the GT4 championship not quite as strong as it was when we arrived at Snetterton. And
Alton Park, as I say, will give us 2 more fascinating races. It's going to be really intriguing to see who comes out on top there. So we have the Pro-Am podium now for GT4, and there is the Pro Darren Turner and the Am Matt Topham, who have had a GT4 outright win this year, but they make their way to the podium. Their result badly affected by the skirmish on the first lap, and that punctured tyre, and of course the pit stop that ensued lost them a lap. It could have been very different but for that. Then making their way for second place onto the podium, Nick Halstead, and there Jamie Stanley. He's back to you. As I said earlier on in the day, Jamie, a GT4 champion many moons ago when he and Christian Dick, the Speedworks boss, shared a Ginetta, and they are for the win, in fact, in Pro-Am, second in Pro-Am for this race, going the way of the Aston Martin drivers. Champagne is sprayed, and the GT4 Pro-Am celebrations, like they weren't wet enough already. It goes all the way into the face of Jamie Stanley, who has got really nowhere else to go except to drench his co-driver, Nick Halstead. But some good racing we've had throughout the day, throughout the season indeed, in GT4, and more of the same in a few weeks' time. So the hour flew by. Let's have a look at some of the best bits, and there were many good bits of that race. It began on this wet road as from pole position Dennis Lind accelerated away, and straight to the outside line went Jelmer Berman, but it was a very brave effort by Jelmer Berman to grab the lead on the wetter part of the road on the outside line as they dived down towards turn 1, but he made it work, he made it stick, and Jelmer Berman came out ahead as Lind ran second and Sandy Mitchell was third. The GT3 drivers sort of got away with it, but they didn't in GT4, as Scott McKenna ended up going wide as he tried to reclaim the line. He collected Jake Giddings, who collected Charlie Robertson, and cars went spinning, and we had Jake Giddings with his broken steering going off the road down at turn 3. Then contact between the 33 Porsche and 77, that was Greg Caton on Marcus Clatton. Scott Malvern retired number 66, Jake Giddings retired Mercedes 25, and Jelmer Berman on the restart was able to use the traffic to his advantage to extend that gap over the opposition, and it was helped even further by Dennis Lind running wide off the road and dropping a couple of places. In GT4, 61 Matt Cowley was trying to work his way forward, and so too was 57, the BMW in the hands of Will Burns, as the 2 McLarens of Stuart Proctor and Marcus Clatton ran out of road down at Brundle and Nelson. The battle was then on between number 97, the Charlie Eastwood Ahmad Al-Harfi Aston Martin, and number 1, Sandy Mitchell and Adam Ballan, the Lamborghini, trying to wriggle its way through as the GT4 scrap continued. Nick Halstead and Jamie Stanley's McLaren coming under attack from Matt Cowley in the Mustang. And the Mustang finally managed to find just about enough grip to be able to go through and take the place. Dennis Lind was trying to battle his way back into contention as the road started to dry, and the drivers were looking for the damper parts of the racetrack to keep the tyres cool. Through Brundle, through Nelson they ran, and then down towards Bombhole as the pit window opened, and one of the first in was number 6, Jelmer Berman, to give way to Ian Loggy. A lap earlier, though, Phil Keane had relayed Michael Igoe, and that brought the WPI Lamborghini back into the mix, and Igoe was outstanding in the second stint, setting fastest lap after fastest lap. He quickly dispensed with Andrew Howard as the pit lane opened for the GT4 cars that came streaming in as well, and the GT4 fight was going to go down to the wire, seemingly, with Will Burns and Gus Burton's BMW getting onto terms with Nick Halstead's McLaren, only for it then to cop a pit lane penalty. Ahmed Al-Harfi was mighty impressive in the second stint as well, and on a couple of occasions using this demon outside line around Coram. First of all, he managed to pick up the place at the expense of Andrew Howard. He would try the same thing ultimately on Leo Machitsky. As for the category lead, through went 61 then. Will Moore at the wheel, Ahmed Al-Harfi, Leo Machitsky kept on battling as they dived down towards turn one. The two RJN McLarens have got themselves together as well, as the 570Ss went side by side with Alain Vallant moving through on the inside of Nick Halstead as well, continuing to build his way back up through the order. But at the checkered flag, it was a win for Ian Logie and Jelmer Berman that brings the Ram Racing duo back into the mix as far as the championship is concerned. Second across the line, Adam Vallant and Sandy Mitchell, and third, Michael Igoe and Phil Keane. As for GT4 honours, it was Will Moore and Matt Cowley for the first win for them as a partnership with the Ford Mustang, and it was a delighted Academy Motorsport team that celebrated victory in the most un-Mustang-like conditions you can imagine, really, here at a wet Snet. So two excellent races that we have had here at Snetterton in the Intelligent Money British GT Championship, and the championship now becoming ever more interesting as we get set for the run into the end of the year. The last races will be at Donington over the weekend of the 16th and 17th of October, but the next stop is at Alton Park over the weekend of the 11th and 12th of September. Again, we'll bring you all the race action plus the support series as well that weekend, and it's going to be another great weekend of racing. For now, though, that's it from Snetterton. Thanks for your company today. From Andy McEwen and David Addison, it's goodbye from us, and we'll leave you at the end of a weekend at which we have said farewell to former British GT race director Bernard Cottrell.